The voice was hers, soft, trembling, unmistakable. My late wife speaking from a world I thought she'd left behind. "If you're hearing this, Chris, there's something you deserve to know." I froze. Every sound in the room vanished. In that moment, I realized love doesn't end with death. Sometimes it starts with a lie. My name is Christopher Turner. I'm 58 years old, a retired engineer from Michigan. For 2 years, silence has been my closest companion. After Margaret passed away, I tried to build a routine around quiet. Coffee at 7, the newspaper at 8, long walks down empty streets. I thought I had learned how to live beside her absence, until this morning. A small package waited on my porch. No return address, just my name, written in shaky black ink. Inside, a plain USB drive. It looked ordinary, but something about it felt wrong, heavy, cold, like it had been waiting a long time to be found. I sat at my desk for nearly an hour before plugging it in. The screen flickered, and then her voice filled the room. "Chris, if you're hearing this, it means I'm gone. And there's something I couldn't tell you while I was alive." I felt my heart stop. The voice was clear, intimate, full of that soft hesitation she always had when trying to say something important. I hadn't heard it in 2 years, yet every syllable felt like a hand reaching out from the past. "Please, don't be angry," she said. "I just need you to know before it's too late." The words trembled, followed by a long breath and silence. Then, static. I stared at the monitor, waiting for more, but nothing came. I replayed it once, twice, again. Each time, the same trembling start, the same abrupt end. My throat was dry. "Margaret?" I whispered, as if she could answer. For a second, I thought I heard something else beneath the static. A faint sound, maybe a name. I turned the volume up, pressed my ear close to the speaker. Nothing but the hum of the machine. Yet somehow, I knew this wasn't random. The message wasn't just a farewell, it was a beginning. I leaned back in the chair, staring at the faint reflection of my face on the screen. "What did you want me to know, Maggie?" Her name left my mouth like a prayer. For years I'd kept her memory safe, sealed behind photographs and routines, and now, this single voice, this echo, had cracked it open. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was recorded before her illness. Maybe she wanted to say something about the will or one of our children. But deep down, something twisted in my gut, a quiet dread I couldn't explain. I opened the file folder, just one file, titled simply, "For Chris.mp3, no date, no metadata, nothing." I checked the timestamp, created 3 days ago. Impossible. She had been gone for 2 years. My hand trembled as I unplugged the drive. I placed it on the table and just stared at it. "Is this you, Margaret? Or is someone playing with me?" The house stayed silent. Only the ticking of the old wall clock replied, counting seconds that felt heavier than ever. I poured myself a glass of water, but my hand shook so much the glass rattled. I sat again, staring at the dark screen. Her words replayed in my mind like an echo I couldn't escape. "If you're hearing this, Chris, there's something you deserve to know." Those words carved into me. Deserve to know. Not need, not should, deserve. What could I possibly deserve now, after everything? I whispered to the empty room. "What did you hide from me?" The air felt thick, almost aware. I caught my reflection again. Tired eyes, gray hair, a man still waiting for a woman who wasn't coming back. Yet in that moment, I could swear I felt her presence hovering just behind me, listening. I reached for the USB once more, but stopped halfway. My fingers hovered above it. Part of me wanted to destroy it, to end whatever this was before it began. But another part, the part that had loved her through every storm, needed to hear her again. "All right, Margaret," I said quietly. "I'm listening." The clock struck 8. The world outside went on as if nothing had changed. But inside that small, dim room, everything I thought I knew about my life began to tremble. And for the first time since she died, I wasn't sure if I wanted the truth, or if I was afraid I might already know it. When I finally gathered the courage to listen again, my hands were still trembling. The room was dim, just the desk lamp glowing over the USB drive lying like a silent threat. I clicked play. Her voice returned, soft, uneven, almost afraid. Chris, there's something I've carried for years, something I should have told you long ago. I was scared you'd never look at me the same way again. My throat went dry. The way she said it, the hesitation, the guilt, it was unmistakable. This wasn't about money or the will. This was personal, deep. She continued, "There's someone you need to know about, someone I should have introduced you to. I thought time would make it easier, but it never did." Then the recording stopped. Just static. I sat back, numb. My heart pounded so loud I could hear it over the silence. Someone I needed to know about? What could that mean? I whispered to the screen, "Margaret, what did you do?" It felt absurd sitting there talking to a voice from the dead, yet I couldn't stop. Every word she spoke replayed in my mind like a haunting melody I couldn't silence. I called Laura again, told her about the new part. She sighed. "Dad, this is getting unhealthy. Mom's gone. Maybe someone's trying to scam you." "Who would go that far?" I asked quietly. "Who would fake her voice like that?" "I don't know, but people do cruel things." After we hung up, I couldn't shake the feeling that she might be right. I decided to bring it to the police. The next morning, I went to the local precinct. The building smelled of coffee and dust, the kind of place where truth and lies sat side by side. A detective named Hall met me in a small office. He was polite, cautious, maybe a little curious. "You said this recording came in an unmarked package?" "Yes," I said. "No note, no name, just her voice." He plugged the USB into his computer, listened carefully. When the message ended, he sat back, arms crossed. "That's unusual. You said your wife passed 2 years ago?" I nodded. "Well, Mr. Turner, this isn't a synthetic voice. The tone, the breath pattern, the vocal tremor, this is human. Authentic." I stared at him. "You're saying it's really her?" "I'm saying it sounds like her," he replied carefully. "But as for how or when it was recorded, that's another question." I left the station feeling more lost than before. The air outside felt heavier. I walked to my car slowly, gripping the USB like a fragile relic of a past that refused to rest. That night, I sat in the same chair, staring at the same dark screen. The house felt smaller, as if the walls were listening. I pressed play again, trying to catch every breath, every shift in her tone. Then, right before the static, I heard it. A faint whisper, barely audible but clear enough to freeze me in place. "His name?" she said. A pause, shaky, frightened. "Is Ethan." The sound of my name falling from her lips had once brought comfort, but hearing another name, that name, buried in the same breath, it felt like a blade sliding between old ribs. I rewound it again and again. Each time her voice cracked just before she spoke the name, as if saying it took everything she had left. Ethan. The name meant nothing to me, and yet it filled the room like a shadow. I turned off the lamp and sat there in the dark, the faint glow of the monitor painting her words across the silence. "Someone you need to know about," she'd said. And now that someone had a name, I leaned forward, whispering to the darkness, "Who are you, Ethan? And why did she wait until now to tell me?" No answer came, only the hum of the old refrigerator downstairs, the clock ticking in rhythm with my heartbeat. I closed my eyes, but her voice kept playing, over and over, the same trembling confession looping through my mind until dawn. I couldn't get her voice out of my head. "His name is Ethan." It echoed through the house long after the recording stopped. By morning, I felt like a man standing on the edge of a memory he'd never lived. I opened my laptop, typed her maiden name, Margaret Evans. For years, I believed I knew every piece of her past. Born in Illinois, studied nursing, met me in Michigan. But the search results told another story. A record appeared. Margaret Evans, Ohio, 1984. My heart thudded. Ohio? She had never mentioned Ohio. I called the county office listed on the document. A woman answered, slow and polite. "Hi, I'm looking for records under the name Margaret Evans," I said. She typed for a while, then paused. "That file is sealed, sir." "Can you at least tell me what kind of file it is?" "I'm sorry, I can't release that information." A pause, softer now. "But sealed records? They're usually for birth or adoption." Her voice faded into the static of my thoughts. Birth. Adoption. My hand trembled as I thanked her and hung up. That afternoon I went through Margaret's old boxes in the attic. Dust coated everything, her handwriting still neat on faded labels. At the bottom of one box was a thin envelope, edges curled, marked M.E. Inside was a folded sheet of paper. Request for birth certificate. Mother, Margaret Evans. The child's name was blacked out. The air felt heavy. I whispered, "You had a child?" I stared at the paper until the letters blurred. She'd been 20 then, scared, alone, and she never said a word. I called Gregory Tate, her old colleague from the clinic. His voice cracked with age and memory. "Greg, it's Chris Turner. I need to know, did Margaret ever talk about Ohio?" A long silence, then a sigh. "So you found out?" "Found out what?" "She was young, Chris. There was a man. Older. It didn't end well. Her parents sent her away when she got pregnant. She gave the baby up before she came back." I gripped the phone. "Why didn't she tell me?" "She wanted a clean start. You were that start." I couldn't breathe. The floor seemed to tilt beneath me. "And the child?" "I don't know. She never spoke his name." After we hung up, I sat in the dark. The truth pressed against me, heavy and unreal. Margaret had carried this secret for decades, through every dinner, every laugh, every quiet night beside me. Was I angry? Hurt? I didn't know, only that something sacred between us had cracked even after death. I walked to her photo on the shelf. "Why, Margaret?" I whispered. "Why didn't you trust me?" The house gave no answer, only the faint hum of rain against the windows. I remembered her voice in the recording, trembling, full of guilt. "Someone you need to know about." Now I knew who. Ethan. I sat back down at the desk, the USB still beside me. Its weight felt different now, heavier, almost alive. If she had left that message, maybe it wasn't to confess. Maybe it was to connect what she'd lost, to me. But all I could think was this. Had I been loving a woman who'd been mourning someone else all along? The rain grew harder. My reflection flickered in the window, pale and tired. I whispered, almost to myself, what else didn't I know? And somewhere deep inside, a quiet voice, hers, seemed to answer, "More than you think, Chris, more than you think." I found him after a week of searching. Ethan Wallace, 40 years old, living in a small apartment on the east side of Detroit. His name matched the birth record I'd uncovered. Seeing it written there, in black and white, made everything real in a way I wasn't ready for. When he opened the door, I froze. His eyes, gray, sharp, were Margaret's. For a second I couldn't breathe. He looked me over, unimpressed. "You're Christopher Turner." It wasn't a question. "Yes," I said quietly. I think you knew my wife." A shadow passed over his face. "I knew Margaret Evans. She wasn't your wife when she left me." The bitterness in his voice cut like glass. I tried to steady my tone. "I didn't come here to cause trouble." "Then what?" he snapped. "To make yourself feel better? To clear her name?" I hesitated. "I came to understand." He laughed, short, cold. "Understand? You spent 30 years sleeping next to her, and you want me to tell you who she was?" I didn't respond. The truth was, yes, that's exactly what I wanted. He turned away, pacing the small room. "She sent me letters, not many. I burned most of them." "Why?" I asked. "Because they were lies." He faced me again. "She said she loved me, but she left me behind. Said she'd come back, said she'd explain. She never did." The silence between us felt endless. I saw in him the same grief I carried, just sharper, unhealed. Finally I said, "She was young, scared. She was a coward," he interrupted, "and now you're here to clean up after her guilt." I swallowed the urge to argue. "I'm not here to defend her, Ethan. I just need to know what happened, please." He stared at me for a long moment, then sank into a chair. His voice dropped, quieter now. "She found me once. 5 years ago. I told her I didn't want to see her again. She cried, said she couldn't tell you about me." I felt my heart sink. "Why not?" He looked up, eyes burning. "Because she was watching you." I frowned. "What do you mean?" He hesitated, as if weighing whether to say it. Then, slowly, "She asked me to keep an eye on you." The words hung in the air, impossible and cruel. "She... what?" Ethan's gaze didn't waver. "She thought you were cheating on her. Said she didn't trust the business trips, the late nights. She gave me money. Said it would bring us closer if I helped her find the truth." I felt my chest tighten. For a moment, I couldn't speak. "She didn't..." I stopped myself. "No, she would." I remembered her questions, the small looks, the way she sometimes stayed quiet when I came home late. Ethan's voice softened. "I didn't do it for long. Watching you made me hate her more. You weren't what she said. You weren't anything like him." "Like who?" I whispered. "The man who left her. My father." His words sliced through the air. Suddenly, it all fit. The fear, the distance, the guilt. I sat down across from him. "I didn't know any of this, Ethan. Not until now." He nodded slowly, eyes glassy. "Neither did I. Not really." We sat in silence. Two men bound by the same woman, one by love, the other by blood, both wounded by what she couldn't say. Finally I spoke, my voice barely a whisper. "I didn't come to justify her or myself. I just wanted to understand what she was afraid of." Ethan looked away, his jaw tight. Maybe she was afraid of being known. He stood, walked to the door, and opened it. "You should go, Mr. Turner." I paused, then said quietly, "For what it's worth, she never stopped thinking of you." He didn't answer. His expression didn't change, but as I stepped into the hallway, I heard him say, almost to himself, "She never stopped watching either." And for the first time, I wasn't sure whether he meant the past or now. I drove home in silence, the city lights blurring into streaks across the windshield. My hands gripped the wheel too tightly, but I barely felt it. She asked him to watch me, the words repeated like a curse I couldn't shake. Margaret, my Margaret, had looked me in the eyes all those years and still doubted me. Every dinner, every soft "be careful" before my trips, all of it now felt like a quiet test I didn't know I was taking. When I got home, I poured myself a drink, but the glass trembled in my hand. Memories rushed back in fragments. Her sudden questions about late meetings, the way she'd glance at my phone when she thought I wasn't looking. "Who's that calling so late? Chris?" "Just work, Maggie." She'd smile, but her eyes stayed on me a little too long. I used to think it was love. Now I wasn't sure what it was. The anger came slow, burning beneath the confusion. I wanted to hate her for it, for not trusting me. But then I remembered the look in her eyes near the end, that fragile kind of fear that made her hands shake. Maybe she had carried that fear her whole life. Still, it hurt. God, it hurt. By the time Laura and Michael arrived that evening, the bottle was half empty. They sat across from me at the table, both wary, both exhausted by my obsession with the USB. "Dad," Laura began carefully, "you have to stop digging. It's tearing you apart." I handed her the printed transcript of Margaret's voice. "Listen to this first." She read the first few lines, then frowned. "And you believe this, Ethan?" "He's not lying," I said. I saw it in his eyes. He didn't want anything from me. Michael leaned forward, his tone sharp. "Of course he did. These people, they hear there's a grieving widower with a pension, a house. They invent stories. He's her son, Michael. Her alleged son. He looks like her, I snapped. Same eyes, same way of talking when he's angry. Laura's voice broke in, softer. Dad, grief does that. It makes us see what we want to see. I slammed my palm on the table. This isn't grief, this is truth. The sound startled even me. The room fell silent. Laura looked down at her hands. Michael leaned back, exhaling through his nose. Finally, Michael said quietly, He's using you, Dad. Whatever this guy told you, it's manipulation. Mom's gone. Let her rest. I wanted to argue, but my throat tightened. They didn't understand. How could they? They never heard her voice trembling in that recording, never saw the kind of guilt that doesn't come from lies, but from love twisted by fear. Still, I could feel them slipping away. My children, the last pieces of family I had left. Laura reached across the table, her touch hesitant. You've always been the one who believed in logic, Dad. Don't let a stranger rewrite your life. Her words cut deeper than she meant. Logic had guided me all my life, until Margaret's voice broke it apart. I looked at them. My son and daughter, their faces drawn between love and doubt. If your mother asked him to watch me, I said quietly, then maybe she didn't trust me. But that doesn't make her a liar. It makes her human. Michael shook his head. No, Dad, it makes her wrong. And it makes him dangerous. He stood, pacing. You're grieving, and that man knows it. Don't give him what he wants. I'm not giving him anything, I said. I'm just trying to understand. Laura's voice trembled. And if understanding destroys everything else? I didn't answer. The truth was already doing that, splintering the fragile balance we had left. When they finally left, the house felt emptier than ever. Their plates sat untouched, their voices still echoing faintly in the walls. I sat in the dark, staring at the USB on my desk. The object that had started it all, the voice, the confession, the unraveling. For the first time, I wondered if the truth was worth it, because each time I reached for it, something else slipped away. The warmth of my home, the faces of my children, the version of Margaret I thought I knew. And yet, I couldn't stop. I whispered into the stillness, if you didn't trust me, Maggie, why send me the truth now? No answer came. Only the creak of the old house, and somewhere, faintly, the echo of her voice in my memory. There's something you deserve to know. I couldn't sleep. The house felt heavier than usual, filled with ghosts that weren't entirely dead. Every shadow looked like her. Every sound felt like her voice returning. I sat at my desk again, the USB resting where I'd left it. My fingers hovered over it for a long time before I finally plugged it in. The familiar static greeted me, then her voice. Chris, even now, after everything I'd learned, hearing her say my name still softened something inside me. The ache and the anger blurred together. I'd listened to that recording dozens of times, but tonight, something was different. A small flicker appeared on the screen, a second audio file I hadn't seen before, hidden under a different name, Fragment 02. My pulse quickened. I clicked play. At first, just breathing, uneven, fragile, like she was recording while sick. Then her voice breaking through. Ethan, he thinks I abandoned him. A pause. The sound of a shaky inhale. But he doesn't understand. I was scared. I was so scared, Chris. Her voice trembled raw with guilt. You were the only man who made me feel safe again, and I couldn't lose that. Not after everything. I leaned closer, afraid to miss a word. I told myself I'd tell you one day. About him, about the past. But every time I tried, I saw that look in your eyes. The one that made me believe I could start over. And I didn't want to break it. The room seemed to shrink around me. She whispered, almost to herself. Ethan thinks I left him because I didn't love him. But he doesn't know. I was just afraid of losing both of you. The first man who broke me, and the one who healed me. Her breathing grew weaker, a faint click, as if she'd set the recorder down. Then softly, if love were simple, I would have chosen honesty. But love never is. Static swallowed the rest. I sat frozen, staring at the screen. My heart pounded against the silence. She hadn't been cruel. She hadn't been calculating. She'd been terrified, trapped between the man who hurt her and the one who might leave if he knew the truth. All those years I mistook her quiet for peace. It was fear, fear wrapped in tenderness, fear of being left behind. I closed my eyes, her words echoing inside me. I was just afraid of losing both of you. That was her curse, the wound that shaped everything. Her secrecy, her doubt, even her asking Ethan to watch me. She wasn't looking for betrayal. She was looking for reassurance she could never believe in. For the first time, I didn't feel anger, only a hollow sadness. I whispered into the dim light, "You didn't need to test me, Margaret. You already had me." The monitor dimmed. The file ended. But her voice lingered, not as accusation, not as guilt, but as something far more fragile. A confession of love warped by fear. And in that quiet, I realized we had both spent our lives afraid of the same thing, losing each other. Only now, one of us was already gone. The garage smelled of oil and rust, the kind of place where time didn't move. Ethan sat on an old stool, his hands blackened from work, his eyes wary as I stepped in. I held the small recorder in my pocket, its weight pressing against my palm like a heartbeat. He didn't speak when he saw me, just watched, guarded, waiting for another wound. "I found something," I said quietly. "Another recording." He looked away. "I told you, I don't need anything else from her." I nodded. "Maybe not, but you deserve to hear this." For a moment, he said nothing. Then he gestured toward a workbench cluttered with tools. "Play it. Let's get it over with." I set the device down. The room filled with her voice, faint, trembling, fragile. "Ethan thinks I abandoned him, but he doesn't know I was just afraid of losing both of them." Her breathing filled the small space. Ethan's head dropped. The sound of her pain, so human, cut through every wall between us. "She loved you," I said softly, "even when she didn't know how to show it." He shook his head, his voice breaking. "No, she left me, Mr. Turner. She left me to build another life." I stepped closer. She built that life out of guilt, out of love she didn't know how to carry, and it broke her. The recording continued, her last words fading into static. "If love were simple, I would have chosen honesty." Ethan pressed a hand to his face. For a long time, there was only the sound of quiet sobbing. Not loud, not angry, just a grief too old to fight anymore. "I hated her for so long," he said finally. "I thought if I did, it would hurt less." I nodded. "I thought she trusted me. And when I learned she didn't, I hated her too." He looked up at me then, eyes red, voice trembling. "So what now?" I didn't have an answer. I just looked around the small garage. The tools, the flickering light bulb, the silence between two men who had lost the same woman in different ways. Finally, I said, "Maybe we stop hating her." He gave a weak, humorless laugh. "You think that's easy?" "No," I said. "But maybe it's the only thing left to do." He stared at the recorder for a long time before pushing it back toward me. "Keep it. I don't want to hear her voice anymore." I closed my hand around it gently. "You don't have to. You already carry enough of her." He nodded, wiping his eyes with the back of his hand. The silence stretched, not heavy now, just tired. I stood to leave, but then paused. "Ethan," I said quietly, "she loved us both, just differently." He didn't answer at first. Then slowly he stood and reached out his hand. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was something. Our hands met, rough, hesitant, human, two strangers bound by the same ache. When I left the garage, the evening light spilled through the half-open door, casting long shadows on the floor. Behind me, I heard Ethan whisper, almost to himself, "Maybe she finally found her peace." I turned once, just enough to see him standing there, still, small, but no longer angry. And for the first time since she died, I felt the same. It was past midnight when I finally returned home. The house was silent, the kind of silence that presses against your chest. I sat in my study, surrounded by old photographs, the scent of dust and memory lingering in the air. The USB lay on the desk, that small, lifeless object that had torn open everything I thought I knew. For a long time, I just stared at it. I could still hear her voice, trembling through the static, whispering her fears into the darkness. I was afraid of losing both of you. It had stopped hurting hours ago. Now it just ached quietly. I stood, walked to the fireplace, and knelt beside it. The flames were low, glowing like tired embers at the end of a long night. I held the USB between my fingers, the last piece of her. Not the woman I buried, but the woman I never truly met. "Margaret," I said softly, "you don't have to explain anymore." The words came out steadier than I expected. I placed the USB on the edge of the fire and watched as the plastic began to curl and blacken. For a second, the metal glinted in the light. Then it vanished. The flames rose, devouring the secrets, the guilt, the questions. In their place, there was peace. Not forgiveness, not closure, just peace. I leaned back in my chair and watched the fire dance. Its reflection shimmered on the window pane, and for a brief moment, I thought I saw her, her silhouette soft and familiar, watching me the way she used to. "Finally," I whispered, "we can both rest." The house creaked, settling into its own stillness. I closed my eyes and let the warmth of the fire wash over me. When I opened them again, I found myself smiling. Faintly, almost involuntarily. Not because the pain was gone, but because I finally understood it. All the years of silence, the secrets, the doubts, they weren't betrayals, they were fears, and behind every fear was the same desperate wish to be seen, to be trusted, to be loved without question. I looked at the empty chair across from me and said quietly, "In the end, that's all any of us ever want, to be trusted." The flames flickered in reply, casting a gentle glow across the room. And as the light danced against the window, I could almost see her reflection there, calm, listening, smiling, as if she'd been waiting all along.